All right, let's dive into this, The Kingdom of the Gods.
Yeah.
We got some excerpts here from Geoffrey Hodson. And wow, angels and divas and nature spirits, oh my.
It's a lot, right. Hodson really gets into this whole world of unseen forces. And what I find so interesting is he's really trying to ground these, kind of out there concepts in actual observation evidence.
Yeah, it's not every day you meet someone who says they've systematically studied angels.
Yeah,
so.
right.
For folks who might not be familiar with Hodson, how would you even describe his whole deal, his background, and how he approached this stuff?
So he was a big name in occult research, super physical stuff, especially active in the first half of the 20th century, really into theosophy, which, if you don't know, it emphasizes this direct, personal experience of, spiritual truth.
So not just sitting back and coming up with theories. He was out there trying to really experience these things himself.
Yeah, exactly. He claimed to have developed clairvoyant vision, which is how he said he could actually study these beings, these forces, in a systematic way. So not just speculating, he was talking about what he said he actually saw,
Okay, that's, on the one hand, totally intriguing, and on the other hand, whoa, how do you even begin to study that?
That's what I think makes his work so fascinating, honestly. He kind of approaches it with a researcher's mind, For example, he looks at folklore and myths, legends from all different cultures, and he sees these stories as little hints, pointing towards something real, a hidden reality.
Like a global game of telephone, but about this unseen world.
Exactly. He argues that the fact that you see these similar stories about gods and angels and fairies and all that across so many cultures, it can't just be coincidence, right? It can't just be people making stuff up. It suggests that there's some shared reality there.
I gotta admit, that's a pretty compelling argument. So,
yeah.
Where do these divas fit into all of this? He makes them sound like, I don't know, the architects of the world almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He describes them as these hierarchical beings, totally different from us humans, and they act as the engineers, he actually says, of nature. They work with these cosmic forces to shape the world around us.
Okay, so not just these mystical beings off in the clouds somewhere.
Right.
But actual forces that are shaping, like mountains, trees.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets really specific, too. He talks about divas that are associated with, mountains, trees, even individual species like bees. And he describes what they look like, their energy, how they interact with, the physical world.
Hold on. He claims to have actually seen these divas. What did he say they look like?
Okay, so he describes them as radiating energy, often with these vibrant colors. Some of them are huge GE. He's talking 50 feet tall.
50 feet. Okay, now I'm picturing something out of, Lord of the Rings here.
Right. He actually worked with an artist, by the way, to create illustrations based on his descriptions. They're in the book. But he makes a point of saying even the best art can't really capture how brilliant and dynamic these beings are.
So he's saying there's this whole other layer of reality?
Yeah.
This unseen world that's just as real and complex as what we see around us?
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. He doesn't just say, oh, yeah, these beings are out there doing their thing. He connects them to a grand symphony of creation. It's like this big musical analogy, right, with this logos, which is kind of like the cosmic conductor. And this logos starts everything off. The great work, he calls it, through a primal word.
Okay, now that sounds like we're heading into, science fiction territory here. A cosmic conductor, a primal word. Break that down for me.
It is heady stuff, I know. But what he's trying to get at is this idea that the universe isn't random. There's this underlying intelligence working in every aspect of creation, and he even ties this into the formation of minerals, plants, even the workings of, genes and chromosomes.
Wow, okay. So connecting this cosmic symphony to the very building blocks of life?
Exactly. Even these processes that we think of as, mechanical, he's saying they're still influenced by this universal intelligence, this grand symphony. It's there's this hidden music playing behind everything. And if we could just tune in, we'd see the universe in a whole new light.
I am starting to see why you called this fascinating. So we've got devas as cosmic architects, logos as the conductor of this whole creation. What about angels? Do they get a part in this orchestra?
Oh, absolutely. And Hodson is very, very clear. Angels are not just humans with wings. Okay. He is not a fan of that depiction at all. He calls it a gross misinterpretation of what they actually are. He describes them as beings of pure force and light, constantly shifting, radiating energy.
All right, now that's an image I'm having a little trouble picturing. What do these beings of pure force and light actually look like?
He describes them as breathtakingly beautiful, but in a way that's really hard to describe, Imagine, like,
Yeah.
textures like shot more silk, constantly shifting colors, this energy radiating out that you feel like you could almost touch.
So not your typical Hallmark angel then?
Nope, not even close. And he gets into some specifics. He talks about rose angels, who are linked to wisdom and love. Angels of music called Gandharvas. He even talks about a Japanese angel, who he describes as guarding a shrine.
Okay, so we've got divas building mountains. We've got angels radiating wisdom. What about, like, the more whimsical creatures from folklore, you know?
Yeah.
Fairies, brownies, that sort of thing. Where do they fit in?
Ah, yes, the little folk.
Yeah.
He calls them nature spirits, and you'll never guess what he says about their appearance.
Don't tell me they're all wearing, like, little tiny hiking boots.
Even better, he actually observed that their appearance is often influenced by human thought and culture.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he describes gnomes that resemble, like, Aboriginal people in some places, while in others they're dressed like medieval European peasants, you know?
Yeah.
He even encountered brownies wearing Elizabethan attire.
Hold on, so you're saying our thoughts, our stories, are literally shaping how these beings look?
That's what he suggests, yeah. It's not just individual thoughts either. He believed that, like, collective beliefs, cultural narratives, they have a huge impact on these beings' forms.
Okay, so if enough people start imagining fairies with, like, tiny tool belts and hard hats, we might actually start seeing them that way.
He might say it's not entirely impossible. It really makes you think about the power of
Yeah.
our thoughts, you know, our beliefs, and how they might be shaping reality in ways we don't even realize.
This conversation is already making me question everything I thought I knew.
Right.
But okay, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's bring it back to Hodson's main point here. He believed that we, humans, we have the potential to connect with these unseen forces and collaborate with them in this great work. So how do we do that? What are the practical steps?
Well, Hodson points to examples throughout history and across cultures, really. He talks about Mayan practices where every part of life was guided by specific deities, and they would have these ceremonies to invoke their help.
So like a divine help desk for, everyday problems.
In a way, yeah. But he also suggests that this isn't just something that ancient civilizations did. He even implies that some historical leaders might have been inspired by what he calls angelic rulers.
Wait a minute. Real historical figures getting advice, like strategic advice, from angels.
He doesn't name any names, but he definitely suggests that this kind of angelic guidance has shaped human history.
Whoa, that's a lot to process. But it does make you wonder, if these beings are so powerful, why aren't they more directly involved in our world?
That's where Hodson gets into the ethics of it all. He's very cautious about seeking personal gain or power through these interactions. He says you have to approach these beings with humility and respect.
Yeah, makes sense. You don't want to go around bossing angels around.
Exactly. He's very clear that these are powerful forces, and trying to manipulate them for your own selfish reasons could backfire big time.
So it's more about
Well,
aligning ourselves with their wisdom, their guidance, rather than trying to control them.
Exactly. He even provides a specific invocation in his book. It's kind of like a guided meditation. And it's designed to help you channel positive solar energies. It's very detailed. It has visualizations, affirmations, and he really stresses the importance of mental focus and inner purity.
So it's not just about reciting the words. It's about cultivating a certain state of being.
Exactly. He truly believed that to connect with these beings, it requires inner work and purification.
Okay, so it sounds like Hodson wasn't just interested in, theory or observation.
Right.
He actually believed that we could learn to work with these beings.
Absolutely. He was all about direct experience. One of his big things was, man can know the facts, faith need not be blind. He believed that humans can develop their spiritual senses, to see and interact with this unseen realm.
He makes it sound almost like learning a new skill, like learning to play an instrument.
It is kind of like that, yeah.
Or a new language or something.
Yeah, developing a new way of seeing, a new way of being in the world.
This is blowing my mind. Okay, but let's back up for just a sec. To those nature spirits. You mentioned that how they look can be influenced by human thought and culture. How does that even work? It's not like they're reading our minds, right?
Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Hodson believed that nature spirits, being, less evolved than divas or angels, they're more susceptible to what he called thought forms.
Thought forms. Okay, what are those?
Basically, they're like energetic imprints created by our thoughts, our emotions, our beliefs. And they exist in this kind of collective psychic atmosphere. And he believed they can actually influence the subtle matter of the unseen realms.
So, like, our collective imagination is literally shaping how these beings look.
That's what he suggests.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay, so if enough people start picturing fairies wearing those little construction hats, we might actually start seeing them that way.
You might say it's not totally impossible. It really makes you think, right?
It really does.
About the power of our thoughts and beliefs and how they might be shaping reality in ways we don't even realize.
This is definitely making me rethink a few things. But
Yes.
okay, before we get too sidetracked, let's go back to Hodson's core message. He believed we could connect with these forces, collaborate with them. How? Where do we even begin?
Well, he suggests several different paths, but they all start with the same thing: cultivating inner awareness and purity. He emphasizes meditation, ethical living, and a sincere desire to serve something larger than yourself.
So it's not just about techniques or rituals.
Right.
It's about actually transforming ourselves.
Exactly. He believed that true spiritual power comes from aligning your will with the divine will, your thoughts with the divine mind, and your actions with the divine purpose.
It's profound stuff.
Yeah.
It's making me rethink, like,
Excellent.
my whole approach to, well, everything. But to get practical for a second, what are some things people can actually do to start cultivating that inner awareness
Yeah.
and that connection with the unseen? So where do we even start with this? Does Hodson give us, like, practical advice for actually tapping into this unseen world?
He does. One of the most important things he talks about is meditation. But not just any meditation. He believed in actively using your consciousness, directing your attention towards these higher realms.
Okay, so it's not about just emptying your mind. It's about actively trying to connect with these forces.
Right, exactly. And he actually gives you specific meditations in the book.
Right.
And they're meant to help you kind of open up your perception to those subtle realms and create a sense of harmony with divas and angels and nature spirits.
So it's almost like tuning your radio to a different frequency,
Right.
trying to pick up signals from that unseen world.
That's a really good analogy. But he also emphasizes that you can cultivate this kind of awareness in your everyday life too, just by paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, appreciating beauty in nature, acting with kindness and compassion. He really saw spiritual development as this lifelong process,
So it's not about, like, going to live in a cave and meditate all day. It's about finding ways to weave these principles into how you live your life.
Exactly. But for those who are ready to dive a little deeper, to have a more direct experience, Hodson actually includes a really interesting tool in the book. It's an invocation for connecting with solar energies. In fact, he ends the book with it, which I thought was interesting.
An invocation for solar energies. Tell me more about that.
Okay, so it's kind of like a guided meditation, but it's about actively calling in those energies, not just passively observing them. It involves visualization, affirmation, and this conscious direction of your will.
So you're basically reaching out to these forces,
Yeah.
inviting them into your experience.
Exactly. He guides you to picture the sun as this radiant source of energy, of consciousness, feeling its warmth, seeing its golden light, sensing its life-giving energy within you.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful image.
It is, right. And then he brings in these affirmations, phrases like, I invoke the radiant power and light of the sun to descend upon me and fill me with its life-giving energy, to really reinforce that connection.
It's almost like a conversation then. You're not just passively receiving, you're actively engaging with these energies.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And he emphasizes that you should do this with humility and a focus on the greater good,
So not about getting superpowers or anything like that.
Definitely not. It's about aligning yourself with those energies for personal growth and service to something bigger than yourself.
This is incredible. This whole deep dive has been a trip. We've gone from mythical beings to practical techniques for, like, connecting with these unseen forces.
It's quite a range.
It really is.
But that's Hodson for you. He combines that meticulous observation with this really practical guidance. And he always brings it back to, like, go and experience these truths for yourself.
It makes you want to grab your notebook, head out into nature, and just, like, start exploring.
Exactly.
Who knows what you might find, right?
Right.
Well said. Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the kingdom of the gods. We hope this inspires you to see the world in a new way. Maybe do some exploring of your own in those unseen realms.
Don't forget what Hodson said. Man can know the facts. Faith need not be blind. So go out there, explore, and discover.